Hello and welcome to this new series where I'll be creating a 2D game from scratch, from almost scratch, and I'll be guiding you through the process. So without wasting any time, I'm going to go over the rules. We are using the C programming language, specifically C11. Not that matters all that much, since C is a very stable language and it doesn't have a lot of differences between versions, unlike C++. And the second rule is we're gonna have to keep the scale and amount of dependencies, libraries that we have to a minimum. So no huge game frameworks, and in the context of C, that just pretty much excludes Raylib, which is what I usually use. Now to get started, this is one of the libraries that we will be going to use, since I don't really want to deal with Windows stuff, since I'm gonna want to have this cross-platform, and since I hate the Windows API. This is SDL, Simple Direct Media Layer, and it's gonna help us create a window and handle inputs and graphics. Some graphics, context setup mostly. We're gonna be doing all graphics in OpenGL. So what I'm gonna create a directory, and I'm gonna add that as a submodule. Let's go over and get a C make lists file going. First, I always forget how to set up a CMake project. Minimum, I think, 3.20. I think that's how it works. I don't know what I'm gonna call this yet, so I'm just gonna call it C game. Actually, I'm gonna make more files here. Kind of infuriating. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna set up our CMake project to include all C files and header files from our engine directory, and then from our game directory. We're gonna have the engine be our shared or static library, depending on how we set it up, and also have our game be just a standard executable. And it's generally a good idea to separate the two in case you want to reuse the engine code for a different game. Although you don't have to split it like this specifically. You can just have source files that are just included directly into your project. I'm gonna include our source folder, make the game project, or target, whatever the hell CMake calls it. I don't really like CMake, I just use it because that's what every other library uses. Because I don't really feel like rewriting all the build scripts that are written in CMake to like something else. And so we have set up our project. We haven't linked the library yet, but we'll get there. For now, let's just get something basic up and running. A simple hello world. And since we already have the engine directory, should script this better, but you know, I'm kind of working on the fly here. Don't say we haven't gotten far. I'm gonna include engine test.h, and I'm gonna make a main function. You have to do some trickery. So what we're gonna do, if define engine API as _decal spec DLL export, and this will essentially mean that this function is exported from this DLL. Actually, we should move this up here. So if we're on Windows and this macro is defined, we're exporting from the DLL. Well, if this macro isn't defined, we're going to import from the DLL. I hate how it's pushing it to the side, like I want indents for organization. Then we do DLL import for importing, and we're going to have to define every single function with decal spec DLL export or import, this engine API thing. This is an unfortunate thing that you have to do mainly because of Windows. It's not an issue in everything else, and so if you're, for example, working on Linux, you also have to keep an eye out to define those functions as DLL, because on Linux or other platforms, I think also on macOS, it won't throw an error to you, whereas on Windows, it will have a symbol not found error. So to test this, we're gonna import our API thing. So define this as pragma once, include, and I'm gonna engine API void say hello world. And so here we're just gonna include standard input output. Excellent. I'm gonna call it from our main function. say hello world. So we have to regenerate our CMake because now this macro is defined, API.h. You can see now it's in the engine it's gonna be DLL export, in the game it's gonna be DLL import. This is why I don't really like working with dynamic libraries on Windows, but you know, that's just something you have to do. So now we can run it and see if it actually does what we want it to. And there we go, we have a hello world. Excellent. So now typically when you're starting a new project, especially in C, you wanna define your code style, you know, your naming convention, things like that, because you know, in C you have a free reign. There's nothing forced on you. So you can decide your own naming conventions, your own code style, and it helps to write them down to stay consistent. I mean, I've been using basically the same code style since I started programming in C, so this isn't really an issue for me. But you know, if you're working on a project that has a different code style than what you're already used to, it helps to just have a reminder. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be naming our types, structs, enums with Pascal case. I saw some people refer to this as camel case. This is actually wrong because camel case is this. The first letter is lowercase. For functions, we're going to also be using Pascal case. Why is Vim so weird right now? What new Vim? Do I even have new Vim installed here? For our variables, we're going to be using camel case. See, this is the difference I was talking about. For our defines and constants and macros, we're going to be using streaming snake case. For our bracket placement, we're going to be using Allman style, so known as BSD style, I think that's what it's called, which means when you have a function, we're going to place the curly brackets on the new line and not up here. Sue me, that's how I like it. So now that we have that out of the way, we can actually start doing something useful in here. For example, you know what every single game and game engine starts with is just having an open blank window. First things first, we're gonna have to include SDL here in our engine project. So add subdirectory engine libs SDL, and since SDL has no longer in Vim, since SDL has a CMake lists file in that folder, you can see it's right here. We're just gonna open up that file and add the projects from that to here. We're gonna link it to our engine, right? And now that once we regenerate our CMake files, now it should be loaded up, and CMake does a bunch of checks to see what your compiler supports, and it's gonna take a while. But it's usually faster, which is concerning. Now it went faster. So if we load up, try to include one of the directories, we should have it here. SDL.h, yes. So I think it works. I'm just gonna have to test it. So we can throw out those test files here. I'm gonna create window.h inside. And also window.c. And since we're only probably ever going to have one window active at any given moment through the whole game, I'm just going to make it a single static window so we don't have to like juggle variables around and structs, pointers, variables, you know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to here just define a bunch of functions. Once again, not forgetting about that API thing. And now here I've named the function with the underscores, and this is because we're kind of namespacing it. So don't get confused when I said Pascal case. This is Pascal case. Like if I had another word here, yes, this is Pascal case. It's just namespaced because C doesn't really have namespaces. I've also forgot to define the boolean type, but we're gonna take care of that, I think, next episode when we're gonna do some more setup. For now, let's just keep this an integer. And we're just gonna make definitions for those functions inside window.cpp. Inside the C file, we don't need this API. This is a header exclusive. In fact, we shouldn't have it. I don't know if it actually breaks anything, but just don't put it there. So this is how you initialize an SDL window. So we're just gonna have like our state up here, SDL window, and then we're gonna define it as static in case it might spill over. So for event processing, I'm gonna define an SDL event E. And so inside a while loop, we're gonna poll the events. And so while it has events that it can poll, this is gonna return true. And so the while loop is gonna keep going. So we're gonna give it a pointer to the event. This is where we store the event. And then we can do a switch case for our event type. And for our window close event, it's gonna be SDL event window close requested. And then we're gonna do window should close equals 1. Oh yeah, and don't forget in C to initialize your variables, because if it isn't initialized, it's gonna be whatever was in the memory before, which is essentially random. And so now we can go back to our main, dump this because it doesn't exist anymore. And now we can engine, well, once we've included it, that is, engine window initialize gaming time. Going to be 1280 by 720 window for now. We can make it resizable later. So while engine window should close, while it shouldn't close, we're just gonna do nothing. And then we're gonna engine deinitialize our window. Excellent. Actually, we handled the events. And now, once we run our program, it should work. Yeah, welcome to CMake. Now it's time to go figure out what's wrong. And there we go. I've changed it to use the static one instead of the shared library. It's a pain, but now we have a window up and running that we can close. And it will close properly without crashing. So this is going to be it for this episode. In the next episode, we'll be doing some more setup and maybe get something drawing on the screen. I'm not quite sure yet. But for now, what we can do is, well, first of all, get a git ignore. Get our build folder and Visual Studios folder out of here and push our changes up to our repository. And so we can just give it creating window.